You can feel it, can't you? Something is changing behind the scenes, and it's not being talked about enough. This team isn't standing still. Moves are being prepared, decisions are being made, and the next few days could quietly redefine everything you thought you knew about the direction of this franchise. But first, click the like button so you don't miss any updates. Let's go! Something unexpected is quietly taking shape inside the San Francisco 49ers war room. And if you're not paying close attention right now, you might miss the subtle clues that could define the future of this franchise for years to come. With just 10 days left until the 2026 NFL Draft, the strategy being built isn't flashy. It's calculated, it's urgent, and it's addressing a reality that many fans may not want to admit. This roster has cracks, and they are starting to show. The 49ers are sitting at the 27th overall pick, a position that feels uncomfortable. Not because of the talent available, but because this team, after getting dominated in the divisional round, somehow finds itself drafting late again. And that creates a fascinating dilemma. Do you go safe, or do you swing for impact? And here's where things get very interesting. The name gaining traction in this projection is Cassius Howe, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. Not the most obvious pick, especially with offensive line needs still lingering, but when you start connecting the dots, it begins to make a lot of sense. Look at the current situation. Nick Bosa is coming off an ACL injury, Bryce Huff has retired, and Mike Williams is also recovering from a serious injury. Suddenly, a position that used to be a strength is now filled with uncertainty. And how? He brings something this defense desperately needs right now: juice. We're talking about a player described by scouts as a self-starter, someone who lives and breathes football. And if you've followed this team under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, you already know that mentality matters just as much as talent. This front office prioritizes players who love the game, and Howe checks that box in a big way. But it's not just about character. The production is real. In 2025 alone, 11.5 sacks, 14 tackles for loss, 41 pressures, and 6 pass breakups. That kind of disruption doesn't just show up on stat sheets. It changes games. And what really stands out is his ability to affect passing lanes, using explosiveness to get his hands up despite not having elite arm length. Now, yes, there are concerns. He's not the biggest edge defender, and stopping the run isn't his strongest trait. But here's the key. The 49ers don't need him to be perfect. They need him to be disruptive. With Bosa and a healthy rotation, Howe could be deployed in a way that maximizes what he does best: collapsing pockets and creating chaos. And if that's the tone for round one, round two might raise even more eyebrows. At pick 57, the projection shifts to Dejon Stripling, a wide receiver coming out of Ole Miss, and this is where things start to feel like a classic Shanahan move. At 6'2", with blazing 4.36 speed, Stripling is the kind of athlete that immediately jumps off the screen. But here's the twist. He hasn't been a dominant deep ball producer. Normally, that might be a red flag. But not in this offense. Because if there's one thing Shanahan values, it's yards after the catch. And Stripling thrives in that exact area. He creates separation, wins contested catches, blocks willingly, and most importantly, he's reliable. Just one drop last season with 55 catches for 801 yards and 6 touchdowns. And here's something that should really catch your attention. Production across 3 different programs: Washington, Oklahoma State, and Ole Miss. And at every stop, he delivered. That kind of consistency tells you this isn't system-dependent success. This is a player who adapts and produces. Still, some will call it a reach. Some will say the 49ers should go in a different direction. But what if this is exactly the kind of calculated risk that unlocks a new dimension in this offense? Because, let's be honest, the 49ers have been missing that explosive YAC presence at receiver in recent seasons, and Stripling might be the answer hiding in plain sight. So now the question becomes, are the 49ers quietly building one of the most dynamic draft classes in recent memory, or are they taking risks that could backfire? Because what comes next in this mock draft might completely change how you see this strategy unfolding. I want to hear from you. Do you agree with targeting an edge rusher early and taking a shot on a wide receiver like Stripling in round 2? Or would you go in a completely different direction? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now and tell me what you would do if you were running this draft. And this is where the strategy starts to unfold even deeper. Because if you thought the first 2 rounds were about balancing risk and upside, what happens next reveals something much more intentional inside the San Francisco 49ers front office. They are quietly building for both the present and the future at the same time. By the time we reach round 4, the Niners suddenly have a cluster of picks, and this is where smart teams separate themselves, not with flashy names, but with foundational pieces. And one name that stands out here is Markel Bell, an offensive lineman who might be flying under the radar right now. But not for long. This is not just depth, this is planning ahead. Bell is described as a mountain of a human being, with elite length, massive wingspan, and surprising movement for his size. And here's the part that should really grab your attention. He has the potential to step in immediately at guard, but long-term, he could be the successor to Trent Williams. Let that sink in. You're talking about possibly drafting the future blindside protector of this franchise in the 4th round. That's the kind of move that doesn't make headlines today, but could define the team 3 years from now. His pass-blocking grade of 83. 5 and 0 sacks allowed last season show a strong foundation. Yes, there are concerns. Weight consistency, penalties, but at this stage of the draft, you're betting on traits, and Bell has them. Then comes another intriguing decision at pick 133, addressing the tight end position with Nate Boerkatoer out of Texas A&M. And if you're expecting eye-popping stats, you won't find them here. But that's exactly the point. Tight end production in college can be misleading. What matters is versatility. And Boerkatoer brings that. He can block, he can line up in line, and he flashes athletic ability with a solid catch radius. In a system led by Kyle Shanahan, that combination is incredibly valuable. This isn't about drafting a star. It's about adding a piece that fits the machine. And then, one of the most fascinating picks in this entire projection. Harold Perkins Jr., linebacker out of LSU. This is where things get bold. Perkins is coming off an ACL injury from 2 years ago, and he's slightly undersized for the position. But everything about his game screams explosiveness, speed, aggression. A player who, in his own words, loves blitzing the quarterback. And when you watch his tape, it shows. In 2025, 56 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 3 interceptions. That's not just production. That's impact across multiple phases of the game. Now imagine this. Learning behind Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, developing without pressure to start immediately, and then emerging in 2 or 3 years as a key piece of this defense. That's the vision here. That's the patience. And finally, a story that feels almost too good to be true, but it's real. Michael Taffa, safety out of Texas. A former walk-on, turned All-American. That alone tells you everything about his mentality. But what really stands out is how he plays the game. Instincts, awareness, always around the ball. Yes, he's undersized, but he doesn't miss tackles. He improved every single year. And in 2024, he recorded 12 pass breakups, showing elite ball skills. In 2025, even after missing 2 games due to thumb surgery, he still put up 70 tackles and added interceptions and pass breakups. He plays fast, he thinks fast, and most importantly, he reacts fast. And that's something you can't teach. So when you step back and look at this entire mock draft, a pattern emerges. Edge rusher to restore pressure. Wide receiver to create yards after the catch. Offensive line for long-term stability. Tight end for system fit. Linebacker with explosive upside. Safety with elite instincts. This isn't random. This is a blueprint. A blueprint that suggests the 49ers are not just trying to stay competitive. They're trying to evolve. Quietly. Strategically. And maybe faster than anyone expects. But here's the real question. Is this enough to get them back to the top? Because after what happened in the playoffs, expectations aren't just high, they're urgent. Now I want your full take on this. Grade this entire mock draft from A to F. Tell me which pick you loved the most, which one you would change, and whether you believe this strategy actually puts the Niners back into Super Bowl contention. And if you want to stay locked in with everything happening around the San Francisco 49ers, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because the next few days are going to change everything.